morning, and welcome everyone to the first UTSA Men's Basketball Weekly Media Availability of the 25-26 season. We have UTSA second-year head coach Austin Claunch getting us started on this year's virtual press conferences. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be back. Good to be in. It's crazy how fast it goes. Here we are.
The Roadrunners are heading into their third year in the American Conference and the second year under Claunch. UTSA finished 12-19 last season and tied for ninth in the final standings. In the preseason polling, UTSA was picked at 11th and also have 11 new players entering their first game in the program this week. The Roadrunners host the College of Biblical Studies at 6 p.m. Wednesday, November 3rd at the Convocation Center, then close the week with a Friday, November 7th day game against NCAA tournament team SIU Edwardsville. Coach Claunch, can you get us started talking about what should be expected from the Roadrunners this season and anything you want to note about your new roster and what we can expect from this week's opponents?
Well, we really like the group we brought in. We have good size, we have good depth. We've had a good couple of months. It's exciting now that we get to play for real this week against two quality opponents. And listen, I think one thing we really have harped on all preseason, all summer is improving defensively. There's certainly some things that we're still trying to iron out. I mean, it's first week of the season, so there's going to be some things that aren't super clean. And I think the biggest thing for us is obviously playing with a certain kind of effort, intensity, and urgency on the defensive side of the ball. And then offensively, I think we're going to be a team that really stresses ball movement. We want to be aggressive, but we also want to make the defense work. So, this week, two challenges with CBS and SIUE, coming in. CBS will be playing their third game in 3 days, I believe. They play today at 12, so we'll get a couple of nights to watch them and get a feel for what they do. I know they've got some really aggressive guards that, they play with a lot of pace, and you've got to be on your P's and Q's when you're guarding ball screens. And then with SIUE, listen, they're a proven program with some guys back from a team that won 20 games last year. And so it's a big week. And the biggest thing that we can do over the next couple of days is just prepare UTSA. That's the most important thing that we're focused on. We had a scrimmage and an exhibition where there's a lot of things that we need to clean up. And so obviously we've got about 48 hours here to make sure we're knocking all those things out before this ball goes up.
Can you go ahead and get us started with some questions, Jerry?
Yeah, good morning, Coach. Thanks for joining us here today. Wanted to ask about your opening night opponent, College of Biblical Studies, coached by Michael Young, a pretty big name in Houston grassroots and college basketball circles. Michael, played on those Final Four teams under Guy V. Lewis. I just wanted to ask you about matching up with a guy like that who's had such an impact on grassroots basketball in Houston for a long, long time.
Yeah, no, it's always fun, for me, seeing these guys and getting to coach against certain guys that you grew up knowing and understanding their, like you said, the importance of the history of not just basketball, but Houston basketball, a place where I'm from, and understanding what he and those teams meant for the city. And so, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I would expect their team to play a lot like he did, and how just that pace and that frenetic up and down style. And so, again, it's going to be an interesting challenge on night one, where you're still trying to iron out some things defensively and not turn the ball over offensively and be clean. I would certainly imagine they're going to come in and push the pace.
Coach, let me ask you, how did you, I know when Michael was playing for Phi Slamma Jamma, that was many, many years ago, before you were born, Coach. How did you learn about the history of what that program did? Was it your father that schooled you in that, or how did you yourself learn about the legacy of that Phi Slamma Jamma bunch?
No, I just think being, growing up in Houston and being around, it's hard not to hear about it, see it, and see something on TV or whatever the case may be. They weren't just a local story. They were a national, a national story about how good they were and the style that they played and how they brought together the city and that community. And so, it's tough for me to maybe pin down how I learned about it. But again, when you're from Houston, you know exactly who these guys are and what that team was and what they meant, to our community in Houston.
Coach, how have your practices been since the last time we saw you play in the exhibition against Incarnate Word? How have you liked what your team has done in practices since then?
Good. I think we just have a clear vision of what we need to do, which, again, I'd take responsibility for, the exhibition. Again, it's an exhibition. You're working on some things, but we did not, come out and show, maybe the things that we needed to do in order to be successful this year. And I think those are things that we've been working on, but coming into the game for whatever reason, we weren't able to replicate what we had done in practice. So for the past week, what have we done to improve that? I just think overall our team is much we're much more clear on the things that we expect, our non-negotiables, and then obviously again, I mean, just when the lights turn on, you gotta go perform. As coaches, we gotta have our guys better prepared. We gotta make sure we're understanding. Not just our team, but obviously our opponents. And then as players, man, I certainly want us to show that same fire and aggression in practice. Show that in the game when the lights come on as well. I would expect to see that, wholeheartedly on Wednesday and Friday. So we've had a really good week, physical, good pace, good clarity, and so I'm excited for the week.
Coach, you mentioned last game that Vashon had been suffering through some aches and pains, and maybe was had a little bit of he was sick a little bit, maybe in the days before the UIW game. How is he feeling, and how has he been doing in this past week?
Yeah, he's still working through some things, just trying to get 100%. And so, it's a long season, so we need to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to make sure he's playing his best, come conference play.
What about Austin Nunez? Is he practicing okay?
Yeah,
Return to practice?
Yeah, Austin's been in all week, and he looks great. So obviously we expect him. We don't expect he'll be full go. He'll be full go come Wednesday, and he's looked good. And listen, I think if it was an NCAA tournament game, we probably would have gotten him out there, against Incarnate Word. But of course, understanding, he really wanted to play, and but knowing what we have coming up, and what lies ahead, it was important for us to, he's such a competitor, and he's only got one speed. I mean, he goes 100% every time he's in the game, and so sometimes as a coach, you gotta protect him from himself, and obviously he's looked great in practice, and he's ready to go. He's excited for Wednesday.
Coach, what did you see? I know you were pretty upset, right after the game, but in the days afterwards, let me ask you what you saw. What did you like from what you guys did the other day? Dorian was telling us he was encouraged by the second half when y'all played with pretty good aggression there. You put the full court press on them. He said he liked the way y'all responded in the second half. What were the positive takeaways in your mind?
That 10-minute segment, I guess the third quarter, start of the second half. We guarded better. We made things tougher for them. And then even toward the end of the first half, I thought we got out and got some easier shots in transition. I would just say in general, the frustration, and I know you hear this term more in football, but we've got to play more complementary basketball. Our defense has to complement our offense, and vice versa. When you work so hard defensively to get a stop, and then you come down and maybe take an unexpected shot, that can be deflating, and it also then affects what's about to happen in your transition defense, and then vice versa. When you do maybe have a little bit more of a methodical possession, when we get stops, we want to run. But if we get scored on, we need to get organized. And I thought we sort of allowed a snowball effect against Incarnate Word. We got rattled a little bit. They came out and made some shots early, and that kind of sped us up, which is not something that we've talked about. And it kind of forced us into maybe some bad shots. As a coach, I got to do a better job of getting us organized in that situation. And when you play a good team, if you take bad shots, they're going to punish you on the other end. So it was a good lesson in a lot of things, and we've learned, we learned a lot from that film. And you'll see a different team on Wednesday and Friday. There's no doubt about that.
Have you told the guys who's going to be starting? Can you tell us?
No, I mean I've got an idea of what it's going to look like, but no, you guys will find out soon enough, Jerry.
Okay. Well, do you think it'll be different from what we saw against Incarnate Word?
It's been 2 weeks, Jerry. I don't even remember who started. Let's listen. And for me, we are at the point of the year where you're probably not going to play 10 or 11 guys, like maybe 10 if you get into some foul trouble. So we certainly have an idea. I mean, it'll be a similar group probably that you saw out there against Incarnate Word in terms of starting and all that. I'm not 100% sure even, but we are starting to kind of hone in on, lineups that we think work and how we want to get guys in with certain guys. So it's coming together. It's still really early, and we like where we're headed, but we're also not near where we need to be. So there's a lot, just because a guy is, matchups matter, depth is really important. And on good, in good teams, man, sometimes there's guys that are good players that just don't play as much at times, right? And that's why depth is really important. It may be someone's game on Wednesday, maybe someone else's Friday. There may be a guy that doesn't play very much Wednesday that plays a lot on Friday. You just don't know. And for us, that's why the investment in each and every player is important and helping guys understand that it is a really long season. And at some point, we're going to need everybody in that locker room. So, no, it was a long-winded answer to no, I don't know who's starting on Wednesday.
Hey, one last thing, Coach. I know you picked up a nice commitment. I know you can't mention names or anything like that until they're signed on the dotted line, but you got a good commitment the other day, and the early period is coming up. What do you expect? Do you think you're going to have some announcements to make? A guy signing here for you in the upcoming early period? How many would you think it might be?
Well, I wouldn't expect many more right now. Obviously we got one the other day, which we're really, really excited about. To be honest with you, we've got a pretty young team. And in this day and age, gets harder. It gets harder to sign maybe X amount of guys really early because you're not always 100% sure what the spring holds, for your group. For me, obviously, we're really focusing on retention. We've got a young team. We're going to play a lot of young guys this year that are going to gain a lot of experience, and hopefully you build that through these young guys and that young core as you move forward. I know that's foreign to a lot of it's hard. It's harder nowadays, with the transfer, portal and those things. But, again, so for us, recruiting is, of course, the lifeline of a program, and we're fired up about, having an early commitment from a guy that is going to really fit our system that can dribble, pass, and shoot. But to be quite honest with you, man, I'm really focused on the bunch we have right here because, like I said, we've got guys with multiple years. We've got a young core that's really good. And so, for us, it's about building this group this year and then making sure they come back to San Antonio.
All righty. That's about all I had, Coach.
That's it? Yeah, you gave me some layups there that, Jerry is the first one of the year. So, no, it's good. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. And again, this team is going to be fun to watch this year. So, we got a lot of work to do, but I'm really excited for the week. It always sneaks up on you.
All right, Coach. See you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, Coach, for coming on. We'll be back here around this time next week, and we'll look forward to a couple of Roadrunner wins to get us started in opening week of college basketball. Thank you again, Coach. And thank you, Jerry.
Yep, birds up.